Welcome to the Tarot Coven cast. Real people, real talk, real magic. Hello out there, lovely listeners, and welcome to the Tarot Coven cast. I'm your host, Jasmine.
And I'm Jessie.
And I'm Jekanovia.
And this time on the show, we're talking all about the elements, earth, air, water, and fire, and the court cards, page, knight, queen, and king. We'll talk about what each element represents and how to work with them. And then we'll discuss how the court cards relate to the elements and do our best to give you some tips on how to best work with these sometimes sticky cards. But first things first, let's get into our opening question. I want to know from the Coven, what's your favorite element and favorite court card? Jessie, why don't we start with you?
Ooh, I have to go with fire. It just seems to fit my nature. And in fact, we've talked about this a little bit, whereas my Western astrology sun sign is Taurus, but I always struggled with feeling connected to that. And in Vedic astrology, I actually have my sun in Aries, which makes so much more sense to me. So I've got quite a few planets in Aries. And so love the fire energy. And as far as court cards, I have to go with the crazy knights because they are just so action oriented and a little frenetic in nature. And I just really like to have a lot of balls in the air. I like to be doing a lot. It's hard for me to slow down. So I resonate so much with the knights and I learn a lot from knight energy.
Interesting. Okay, cool. I thought you might say Queen of Pentacles because I know you love that one as well. But
I do.
The fire
I do, and I
energy
aspire to be all the queens, right? I feel like when one day I will grow into the queens, and yes, the Queen of Pentacles is certainly one of my favorite cards.
Okay, so that's what you want to be when you grow up then.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. What about you, Jekanovia?
Well, I'm kind of all over the place. Earth is my favorite element, believe it or not. But, you know, with my rising, my sun, and my moon, I'm like earth, fire, and water. There's no earth anywhere in there.
Right.
My favorite of the court cards is actually the Queen of Wands. I just think she's like a badass bitch. I love her. No real reason other than that.
Well, I am going to have to agree with you on that one. The Queen of Wands is my favorite court card as well. And in my notes, I have the same thing. Like, she is a badass. And honestly, she reminds me the most of the Magician as well. Like, I see the Queen of Wands as being kind of witchy in nature. So that's probably why I like her so much. But I don't know if she's the court that I most like, but she's probably the one, you know, like with you, Jessie, she's the one that I want to be when I grow up. So, and then as far as my element, I got to go with water. I mean, it's my sun, my rising, and my moon sign. I'm always my calmest when so I used to go to this cottage every summer and it's on just this small river. And that is the place that I think about when I need to meditate or calm down or just chill out from a stressful day. And whenever I am at that cottage and just on the dock by the river, I am a different person. Like, I am just so relaxed, so in my element, as you might say. So yeah, and honestly, I don't know if it's too much information, but I get my best ideas in the shower. So water is definitely my favorite.
I love that you've already made that connection. Like you know that about yourself and you can like just be prepared to receive in that space. And by the way, that cottage on the river, that sounds amazing. When are we going? Let's all do it.
Well, I mean, sort of like a little sidebar. Tyler and I were actually going to get married there this summer, but we found out that the owner sold it. So we will never go there again, unfortunately, but I'll always have it in my memory. And I'm sure I'll find another place on another river and it'll be okay. But
yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Good memories though. Okay. Well, let's dive into the conversation. I want to first start with like why I wanted to pair elements and court cards together. And maybe you both will have a little bit more to say about this or your own opinion. And I'd love to hear it for sure. For me, the way that court cards really started opening up, and I do still have trouble with them sometimes, but the way that they really started to speak to me was when I saw them more in an elemental way. Because, you know, you can get really tripped up with thinking about like Do they represent a person? Do they represent an energy? Do they represent me? And I think that in different readings and depending on what's coming up around with the other cards, it could be any or all of those things. But when I get really tripped up with a court card, I always try and bring it back to, okay, what are the elements that are represented here? And I don't just mean, so for instance, like the Page of Wands being represented by fire, of course, because wands and fire, right? But I use this system, and to be perfectly transparent, I learned it from Tarot for the Wild Soul with Lindsay Mack. And I see pages as earth, knights as air, queens as water, and kings as fire. So going back to that Page of Wands, it would be the mix of earth and fire. So to me, what comes to mind there then is like this very grounded expansion. So I don't know. I just think that's a system that can help people get a better handle on these cards. What do you guys feel about that?
I can totally get on board with that. Everything you said, I wholeheartedly agree with. For me personally, I see them usually more as personas that I need to take on in any given situation.
Right.
So if you say I have that Queen of Wands comes up, well, that's time to put on my big girl pants and, raise a little hell. Like that. That's how I have usually always used the court cards. As far as when you were saying the association with the elements, I have actually followed that intuitively, exactly how you were saying, how they all pair up. So I don't think I really have anything else to add.
Oh, that's interesting. So that wasn't like a system that you read about in a book or anything, or that somebody pointed out to you. It just kind of felt right.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think so. Maybe I did read it in a book. I've read so much and talked to so many people about it. I don't know 100%, but as far as I know, I just think that's just how it naturally flowed.
It's an interesting connection to be made. So taking it back to the Ayurvedic standpoint, earth is really that childhood time, the kapha time. And I look at the pages equaling that earth element, and it's kind of an interesting connection. It really follows along with the Ayurvedic side of it. And in my mind, as I'm thinking about kings being fire, and I have such a connection to wands, maybe I need to accept the fact that I've grown up from the knights. Maybe I am the king after all.
Interesting. I like that. Well, let's see how that sort of like evolves as we move through the conversation,
Love it.
And that said, like I have seen, I don't think Lindsay Mack is the first person to think of this dual element thing either, because I have seen it where knights are fire and I believe kings are air. I think it's just those two that are swapped. I don't think I've ever seen queens represented by anything except for water, but the other three I have seen them sort of in different setups. But this is the one that just feels right to me. There's something about the element of fire that really sort of resonates also with that king energy for me. And the fact that knights, like you were already talking about, Jesse, they have that movement, that action-oriented energy, and the air, I think that just moves along with it. So that's what makes the most sense for me. I think we should get started. Let's dive into the elements first, and let's start with fire. So fire aligns with, obviously, the wand suit in tarot, and for me, I think about it corresponding with spring, because Aries is the sign that starts that season, and Aries is a fire sign. So I don't know, do you guys see that in a different way? Like, do you have a way, like a system for the elements and the suits of the tarot and what sort of season they represent, or is that something you even work with?
I think that makes perfect sense. And even on, our upper northern hemisphere with Beltane being so much connected to fire, that totally makes sense.
Okay, cool. What about you, Jaconovia? Is there another system that you use, or does that align?
No, that actually aligns exactly with what I actually had already made notes when I was preparing for this episode, because as you were saying, they associate with the zodiac signs of that time of year. And I just feel like that's exactly where that energy is with those specific cards.
Okay, cool. So we're all on the same page. All right. And then just to say more about the zodiac stuff, obviously fire would align with not only Aries, but Leo and Sagittarius as well. Now, I just wrote down like some symbols and kind of keywords that I associate with the element of fire, and I'll run through mine and then I'll ask you guys if you have anything else to add. So for symbols, I think of, obviously fire, right? But candles, the sun, rainbows, incense, and the colors red and orange. In terms of keywords, I've got passionate, active, spiritual, creative, impulsive, visionary, bold, adventurous, inspired, and enthusiastic. So, Jesse, I'm going to throw it to you. If you've got anything to add to that list, go for it. But I know you're also going to maybe suggest some essential oils that people can use if they need to get more in touch with that fire energy.
I think you've nailed symbolically. I know I was trying to think right off the cuff of something else that would go along with fire. And of course, my card that I associate most with is the sun. So I love seeing that. And again, another connection to that Aries fire energy that we have. But yeah, so essential oils, I really, thinking about the warmer oils, the ones that tend to heat up and may even feel hot when you put them on your skin or even smelling. And so this is where you've got cinnamon and ginger, oregano, and specifically about the ginger, that's known to start that digestive fire, that Agni within your own system, your biological system. So, if you're going with more of the herbs too, not that you'd want to use this as an essential oil, but you've got garlic in there and curries to add to the mix as far as lighting up that fire.
Right. And I feel like we talked about that a little bit as well on the Beltane episode, the whole ginger thing of getting your digestive fire started, right? So all working within that same kind of element. And so, Jaconovia, I think you've got some herbs for us. And if you wanted to add some symbols or keywords as well, go for it.
Yeah, I think you covered all the symbols. As you were saying them, I was like, oh, yep. As far as herbs go, I know the herbs that associate with the different elements. So what I did is I found out which ones of those herbs associate with each of the zodiac symbols. And, in that case, because, for instance, with the fire element, that's your wands. So the kings are Sagittarius, which is chervil and saffron. Your queens are Aries, which is nettle and geranium. Your knights are Leo, which is sunflower and chamomile. And pages are usually, it's just like the personification of that element, right? So there's not really a specific zodiac symbol that goes with it. But that's calendula is a really good one for your pages.
Interesting. Okay. And what was the first one that you said for kings?
Chervil.
Chervil. Does that go by a different name, or am I just not thinking of the right thing here?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
It's not one of my favorite tasting herbs.
No.
But I do know it's really good in savory dishes as far as I know.
Yeah, I think it's more of a mixed herb. Like it's something that you would find in a poultry seasoning, or I think that's where I've heard it before.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't usually use it on its own, I don't think.
That the flavor's not my favorite. I don't want to say I don't like it.
Tell us
I'm
how
not
you really
like
feel. Okay, awesome. And then unfortunately, Elena couldn't be with us to chat about elements, but she did want to let us know about some crystals that we can use for each of the elements. And when I say working with the elements, Jaconovia, you kind of touched on this whole idea of the fact that in your chart you have very little earth, right? That's what you were saying? That's kind of the element that's a little bit missing, especially from that big three, as they call it. So
the big three. My whole chart is very lacking.
You know what? Same. I think I only have one planet in Earth. I think that's the element that I'm sort of missing, let's say, or that I have a lack in. And so it could be that could be the reason that you want to work with that element. You want to call in more fire if your chart is really full of earth and air and water. But it could just be that, maybe you're pulling a lot of fire cards. Maybe you're pulling a lot of wands. And so you just want to be able to call that energy in. And then the same would go for the rest of the suits. But I just wanted to sort of elaborate on what I mean by working with the elements, right? So now, I am no expert on crystals. Jekanovia, you might know a little bit more maybe, and Jesse, maybe you do as well. So if you guys want to say anything about these crystals that I bring up, please feel free to jump in. Elena has said that for fire, we can be working with carnelian, tiger's eye, and sunstone. Sunstone seems pretty self-explanatory, although maybe it's not. But the fact that the sun is in there makes sense to me. Jekanovia, do you know anything about those three crystals?
Yeah, your carnelian is all about, it's just like a fire. It clears everything around it. You don't even have to cleanse those cards because they're self-cleansing. It's all about your creativity, your passion, business. It's a really good business stone to have if you're trying to launch a business or find success. And your tiger's eye, that's actually really good for traveling. So it makes sense because fire would be a lot of, movement and, blazing new trails. So it would make sense. Yeah.
Well, and I might just add, I have a big hunk of citrine on my desk. In fact, I should take a picture of it, and calcite. Both are yellowish orangish in color, and I know that they are stimulation type crystals. And so it is about, taking action, and it's on my desk for a reason. It kind of reminds me and it lends its energy to being productive and hopefully being more focused. So those are two that I also like to incorporate for fiery stones.
Awesome. Yeah. My experience with crystals, I love them. I think they're gorgeous, but I basically just have one of every color because I like to have the rainbow. But that's as far as my knowledge goes. So I'm glad to have you guys around, and especially we're lucky to have Elena because she definitely knows a ton as well. So
yes, she does.
Yeah. Okay, so are you guys good on fire? Can we move on to water?
Let's do it.
Absolutely.
Okay. So water in the tarot associates with the cup suit. It corresponds with summer. Of course, Cancer is the sign that sort of kicks off the summer solstice. And then in addition to Cancer, it's also the signs Scorpio and Pisces. For symbols, I think of the ocean, the river, the ocean and the river, like the only river. But anyways, a river, rain, mist, a mirror. For some reason, a mirror kept coming to mind with water. I don't know. Maybe you guys can elaborate on that for me, but it just kept coming to mind. And then the colors blue and even gray. In terms of keywords, intuitive, emotional, relational, creative, empathic, compassionate, reflective, receptive. Maybe that's that mirror thing, the reflective thing. Heart-centered and expressive. Jesse, anything to add? And did you want to give us some essential oils?
Ooh, well, sticking with the symbols, I think true to the cups, anything dealing with, something that holds the water, the vessels there, and even fish. Who knows? That Pisces connection that could work
for sure.
I love the mirror symbol. I think that's an important one to add. And essential oils. So this is where we're thinking about calming, when we're all fired up and needing to relax or take a chill. That really is where the chamomile comes in, lavender and jasmine. And I might also even say, magnesium chloride is something that's really missing from our mineral system. Obviously, our soils are depleted and we are all lacking in that. And that's a really easy thing to add. It's not an essential oil, but it's almost like an oil where you can just place it on your chest. And it's almost like a chill pill, right? And you can find it at any drugstore. It's really inexpensive. It comes from a couple of sources that sourced from around the world. And so that's my list there. Chamomile, lavender, jasmine, and sodium chloride as a little extra.
Oh, I like that bonus one. Yeah. I just have to say it's cool that jasmine is one of the essential oils since it's for water and I'm a Scorpio and it just seems right.
It's so sweet. There's just nothing like the scent of real jasmine flowers. If you've ever smelled them, they're very tropical, obviously. So you kind of need to travel, or hopefully you live somewhere that is tropical in nature. But it's perfectly fitting for you, Jasmine, I must say.
You know what's funny? I don't know that I've ever smelled the natural flower. Of course, I've smelled the perfumes, the soaps. Just growing up with the name Jasmine, you get a lot of jasmine stuff for gifts. So I've smelt all of that stuff and I've had the tea. I'm not a fan of any of that stuff, but maybe I would like the actual, fresh flower, the actual scent of it, as opposed to anything sort of made from the scent. I don't know.
It is absolutely intoxicating. I have no doubt that it would just knock you over.
Yeah.
In a good way.
It's now, so it's got to be on my bucket list then. I've got to find some natural jasmine and figure it out.
Just head down to Hawaii.
Oh, okay. That's simple.
Put that on your list.
It's going on the list for sure. Well, and so I'll just mention really quickly the crystals that Elena has written down for us. I think this is pronounced celestite, then labradorite, and clear quartz. Jekanovia, do you want to weigh in on those crystals and then give us some herbs to work with as well?
For sure. Well, your celestite is all about your intuition and tuning in with your guides. So, I mean, that's obviously excellent for water. Labradorite, I like to use labradorite when I'm working with doing any mediumship. I find it's really protective when you're working in your magic, when you're working with your intuition. Maybe it doesn't facilitate it, but it definitely protects you with it. And your clear quartz is just, it's usually like an all-purpose crystal, but I do find that it gives you that mental clarity that you might need when you're trying to sort through emotions. So it's very fitting.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And then for water, which is our cups element, or our cups suit, the king of cups is Pisces, and those herbs are borage and basil. Your queen of cups is Cancer, sage and lemon balm. Knight is Scorpio, coriander and catnip, and your page is rose. Very beautiful rose.
Lovely. Now, okay, so before we go any further, what is this, is this a system that you work with where, like you were just saying, the Scorpio corresponds with the Knight, Pisces with the King? Where are you coming across that?
I have come across that I've had it in my tarot journal. So I've come across it obviously multiple times. So it's kind of resonated. So I put it in my practice. I can't tell you exactly where I found it.
No, fair enough.
I would say it's a lot of bloggers. I try to get most of my information independently because it's people that are doing it. It's not just, written for a book to get a paycheck. So I highly recommend. Instagram is full of amazing teachers. So definitely follow links and follow accounts that are just willing to teach what they know from experience, because that's where I've learned a lot as well.
Yeah, and the from experience part is important, right? Because I was going to say these are people that are actually using that in their practice. Like they're not just saying this corresponds with this and, sure, that sounds good. I only ask, I'm just curious because I've seen it a few different ways and I'm still trying to decide what really resonates with me. And I don't know that I have decided yet, honestly. Like I don't know. Yeah, I'm just, because I'm trying to think of, each astrological sign also has a modality. So for example, like Scorpio is a fixed sign, Cancer is the cardinal sign, and Pisces is the mutable sign. And so I'm trying to figure out how that works with the court energy as well. So, but I think there's so many different ways to interpret it, right? As with most things in tarot, it's really all about what's working for you. And so I like that you bring up the point about following people that are actually using that in their practice and being able to see like why they're doing it that way, Yeah.
I think for the most part, what I did is I took the information that resonated because, for instance, because I use the court cards as personality types and personas that I might need to take on. So that would be the associations that resonated with me. But when you're talking about with the mutable, the fixed, and the cardinal sign, that might be a completely different association with those cards. So I'd be really interested if you think of something, a different way to look at that. Definitely, I would love to hear about it.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm still trying to, because I'm still learning so much about astrology, and so pairing it up with things, I think there are certain things, like obviously the water signs are going to correspond with the water suit in tarot, right? That's just pretty basic. But then when you get into the intricacies, there are old systems in place, and those are fine, but I'm willing to update things and modernize them and see different points of view. And again, it's all what works for you at the end of the day, right? So yeah. So I just wanted to dig a little bit more into that before we went forward. But I think I'm ready to move into air if you ladies are.
Definitely.
All right. So air corresponds with the sword suit, and it also corresponds with fall because, of course, we have Libra starting off with the fall equinox, and as well, in addition to Libra, I should say, we also have Gemini and Aquarius. Then for symbols, winds, clouds, sky, and for me, air also really has a lot to do with writing and speech and communication in general. And then the colors white and yellow. For keywords, I've got logic, intellect, mental, thinking, beliefs, ideas, rational, communicative, cerebral. Jack and Ovia, let's go back to you. What do you have to add, or what do you have to add, if anything, to those symbols and keywords? And I think you've got the list of crystals in front of you if you want to dive into that as well, and the herbs.
For sure. I don't have much else to add. Air, to me, it's like that cool, that refreshing relief feeling. It's all about Cancer, right? It's all about the emotion. So to me, I just feel like relief and coolness, and that relief after you speak your truth. So that's the only thing I would add there.
Nice.
Now, as far as Elena's crystals, she has aventurine, blue calcite, and lapis lazuli, which are all really great for your communication, for your throat chakra, speaking your truth, seeing the truth in a situation, which is another really great element of the air. I can't really add anything else to that. She's pretty much nailed that.
Nice. Lapis lazuli. That's a fun one to say.
It is. It's really pretty too. It's like this great blue color.
It sounds like it would be pretty. I'm sure I've seen it, but I can't picture it at this moment, but it sounds like it would be pretty.
Highly recommend. 10 out of 10. Now, as far as your herbs go, for your swords suit, we have the king is Gemini, lavender and parsley. Your queen is Libra, bergamot and elderberry. Your knight is Aquarius, and comfrey and fennel are the herbs for that. And your page is mugwort.
Ooh. How would you use mugwort? That's one I've heard about, but I don't know that I've ever used it.
I've had mugwort tea. It's really, it's alarmingly earthy flavor, but I can see where they get the air element. It's mostly used as smoke cleansing in bundles, as you would sage or anything like that. So,
very cool. Okay, Jessie, anything to add for symbols and keywords, and what essential oils do you have for us?
Oh, essential oils. So think about all of those really aromatic, maybe something that reminiscent of when you had a cold and your mom would put like a vapor rub on your chest. But we're talking about peppermint, even lemon as like a citrusy, but camphor, spearmints, the wintergreens. And I would even put in like a balsam, some of the more refreshing piney smells as well. So,
ooh, I love that. And then you were good on symbols and keywords and all that?
Yeah. And going back to the Ayurvedic, the air is what moves things through. It also is about the communication. So again, another great connection there. And I really want to thank Elena for putting together the crystals list. It's been fun to talk through them. And I've got a few more to put on my list of ones that I need. So thanks, Elena.
I know. She is the crystal enabler of the group, I think.
Yes, indeed.
I agree.
Okay.
I'm not complaining though.
Yeah, no.
Jess, I was just wondering, with pine, I've heard of people drinking pine needle tea for like a lung congestion and things. Is that something you know about? I'm curious.
I have heard that as well. I don't know. In fact, I have a beautiful tea. I should have looked at what the ingredients were. And it was all for kind of congestion and sore throat. But I think you'll find more of those, Yeah, just the aromatics. And I also should have said, even with some of they're strong, right? And so these are the oils that you do want to be careful with because they can tend to burn. And we're not doctors or anything, so I'm not like prescribing you, but just knowing that these would be the ones that maybe just even like in your hands and helping you breathe, but also just note you don't want to touch your eyes after using these oils. They're the ones that are going to keep you crying for a while.
Okay, gotcha. Good points. Good points. Yeah. I mean, obviously, none of us are medical professionals. This is all for entertainment, self-care. But yeah, good point. Glad you brought it up. Okay, so let's move on to Earth, which corresponds, of course, with the Pentacles suit and also with the season of winter because we have Capricorn kicking off the winter solstice. And in addition to Capricorn, we've also got the signs of Virgo and Taurus. And symbols, stones, pentagram, dirt, the colors brown and green, mountains, trees, salt, keywords, physical, body, material, hardworking, soul work, practical, grounded, and to the point. Jessie, anything to add to those? And then give us your essential oils as well.
Ooh, this is such a great list. And yeah, no, I feel like that earthy energy. I mean, we've all felt it where you just feel really grounded and where it's almost like I would even maybe put just like blood in here. Really, it's like the life blood, feeling just, it keeps us going, everything moving. It's life energy. So let's put it in there. Blood.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that makes me think, I mean, I don't exactly know what the connection is, but something about blood made me think of like present moment. And of course, being grounded and that earth energy is really that present moment type thing. I don't know. Maybe it's because it's bringing you back to your body.
Yeah. And just, as you're rooted, it's kind of your life blood, feeling it kind of pulls through. But, when you're on the ground, even just putting your feet on the earth, right?
Yeah.
Having that connection point as much as you can. We walk around in shoes and, a lot of my friends who happen to be more, naturopathic, they said, if you're feeling off, take your shoes off and go stand on the grass and just close your eyes and breathe. And we all could use a little bit more grounding, especially, as we are more on our digital devices and not really taking time to just be present in the moment. And I would say for anyone who can just take a few moments to stand with their feet. I mean, think about like how you feel when you're on the beach and the sand between your toes and just that is an amazing energy. Well, that is real. Like there is something energetically happening with that connection of yourself and your body to the earth in that moment. And we can connect to that just, on the grass anywhere. Get out on a little patch of grass and it's like medicine for your soul. And I know that Jekanovia is probably nodding her head because she is just, earth goddess. And I love all the pictures that she posts of the things that she's planting and growing. And you just embody that for me so much.
That is a huge compliment. I have to thank you for that.
Well, and it's so funny that because as you were saying that, Jessie, the whole time I'm nodding my head and thinking, yeah, and we just got this beautiful video from Jekanovia of her taking a walk through her property for the first time barefoot this year because finally there's not so much snow. And even just watching that video was therapeutic in a sense because it's just like, oh, I know how that feels. That must be feeling really good right now.
Yeah, that feeling of the warm earth, like the sun warmed earth. So it's like the fire meets the earth, right? And it's just, it's so healing. And you're walking through the forest and you're breathing in that earth energy. And it's just, again, healing. There's really, I don't think a word for it, but if there is, I would love to hear it.
Well, Jess, do you want to give us the essential oils for earth?
Yes. So think about those woodsy, earthy smells. So even sandalwood, which a lot of the incense that you'll find has that musty sandalwood smell, frankincense, even clove. But I'd also add like the patchoulis and and there's something even about orange, right? Like I feel like orange with some of these smells just kind of adds that alive kind of scent. I don't know. I don't have that on my list, but I was thinking about how well that usually pairs with these essential oils. It's like you've got the earthiness with that life zest going on.
Love that. All right, Jekanovia, how about some crystals and herbs for earth?
Well, Elena has smoky quartz and hematite for earth. So your smoky quartz is, I would recommend that for your most grounding crystal you can possibly get your hands on. So that makes a lot of sense. You can almost feel the roots growing out of your feet when you're meditating with it.
Ooh.
And your hematite actually is it's a very protective stone of your physical self. And it also is known for drawing out negative energy or fear, any of those lower dense energies that you might be holding in your body. It's known for drawing that out. So it's really excellent stone for your earth work.
Right on.
Yeah. So, and for the herbs, we've got the suit of pentacles. The king is Virgo, and his herbs are dill and marjoram. The queen is Capricorn. We've got rosemary and tarragon. We've got the knight, who is the Taurus, and mint and thyme. And the page is pennyroyal. Now, I just want to point out my two absolute favorite herbs, which I have tattooed on my body, believe it or not, are rosemary and thyme, and they're both of the earth element.
Oh, cool.
Ooh, I feel like we might need to do your Vedic astrology chart. Maybe there's some earth in that line of thinking. So
let's geek out if we ever do that.
Let's put that as a to-do. We'll investigate that and report back.
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely.
Well, really quickly, okay, Jekanovia, your rising is Gemini, right? In Western?
Yeah.
So then I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think it would just be Taurus in Vedic, which is
it could be.
Sign. I think so. I'm not 100%.
See, some of my best friends, my partner is Taurus. I surround myself with Tauruses.
All right, we'll have to investigate.
You know what's funny is that recently I've noticed that I surround myself with earth signs as well, or people that have quite a buildup of planets or other placements in earth signs. So I don't know. Maybe it's we're looking for that like sort of missing element to sort of fill the gaps. Yeah. Yeah. Again, I'm not 100% certain on that Vedic placement, but as far as I've seen, Jesse, just sort of exploring it with you and your chart, it seems like everything in Vedic is sort of just like one back from Western, but
it's a little shifted. And then they use the ascendant, which is the constellation or sign that's rising in the east at the time of your birth.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit different, but we will, I cannot wait to look at, okay, now I'm really curious. So
yeah, me too. You guys are so smart when it comes to this. My God, I love listening to you talk about it.
No, I just dabble in it and I have so much learning to do, but with all that love of earth, and maybe that's it too, is just you are always looking to try to, complement yourself. And so all of your beautiful talents and everything that you've got going, if you maybe don't have a heavy earth placement astrologically, it totally makes sense. We always find our perfect pair, our perfect partner. And that's where we get these earth people in our lives.
Yeah. Even just subconsciously, we're looking for it, right? And Jesse, if you have a good place where you can do, like, I don't know if there is a website where you can just do like a Vedic chart, just like a basic one for free. There's so many where you can do the Western ones, but.
Yeah, there are. Let me find a good one and we'll include it in the show notes.
Yeah, awesome. Hey, I'm Jasmine.
And I'm Mel's.
And we're the hosts of the Damn Fine TV podcast.
We cover shows like American Horror Story,
The Haunting of Hill House,
Westworld,
Chilling Adventures of Sabrina,
and so much more.
Lately, we've been talking a lot about the early years of Twin Peaks, the show this podcast was named after, and starting very soon, we're going to be talking about it even more.
Starting on May 19th, we'll be breaking down 2 episodes of Twin Peaks Season 3 every week. I mean, isn't it so dreamy?
So come join us for Twin Peaks Tuesdays, a journey that's bound to be both wonderful and strange.
Where the owls aren't what they seem.
The cherry pie is to die for.
And the coffee is always damn fine and hot.
We'll see you again in 25 years.
No, Jasmine, we'll see them in May.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Okay, so just look for the Damn Fine TV podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, and we'll see you then. Okay, well, let's move on to the court cards. So, as I kind of mentioned up front, court cards can kind of represent a whole bunch of things, and it really depends on, I guess, what resonates with you, what's sort of coming up with the other cards around that court card. But it can be energies and archetypes or people, or it can represent you. When I was first learning to read, I would, before I even shuffled the deck, I would say to myself, okay, if court cards come up, they're going to represent this person. Like, let's say I was doing a particular type of reading. So I would say they're going to represent external, or they're going to represent only me, or they're going to represent only energies. And I've kind of shifted that now that I've been reading for a while. And it is mostly about what else is coming up and just what's like sort of pinging my intuition in the moment. I do want to be specific in saying that court cards, even though they're called queens and kings and all that, they are not a gender. They are not a specific race. They do not represent a specific age, although you can have certain energies that sort of align with ages, I guess you could say. But they are I just don't want people to think like I'm a man, so I can't be the queen energy, right? I know, Jekanovia, you had already kind of told us that you use them as energies that you need to pull in. Is that right?
Yeah, especially just to add on to what you were saying about the masculine and feminine, I think it's important, and it's a really good lesson in practice, I think, to help us almost identify those different elements within ourselves, because we are all a balance, a mixed balance of those two energies. So it's nice to find out where we lean, because it's not so much gender, it's more the energy. So, that feminine energy is the nurturing and the quiet, the intuitive. And then your masculine energy is that like action, let's go, let's do this, the dominance. So I think it's important that we all learn to work with those within ourselves anyway.
Yeah, for sure. And I think even to take it to another step, if you're not enjoying that like feminine masculine dichotomy there, you could even say receptive or active energies, maybe. I'm sure there's a ton of other words for that as well, but like you were saying, that more nurturing, that more caring, or the taking the action, the going out, it's more extroverted or introverted. I don't think that's exactly quite the right thing, but let me know if you guys get what I'm throwing down there.
I totally get it. Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be different for everyone. Everyone's going to have their own definition.
Yeah.
Okay, so for the courts, I like to see them as, maybe not the age, but I do look at it as maturity. And so for me, especially, let's go back to the Knights. And I mentioned that it tends to be a really accelerated feeling of whatever that element is. So let's say we take the Knight of Swords. I think of that as someone who is like really like anxiety, like that they cannot stop thinking, and it's just like nonstop. And so what does that look like? How does that manifest itself in real life? And so it's almost like the Knights just take whatever the feeling is for the suit and kind of take it to the extreme level of that. And then you kind of play that into, what is that for the page? It's a little bit more grown than the Fool, but, still kind of exploring and something new. And then with, of course, the Queen and King, their respective energies and how that looks more in a grown up and mature and developed sense.
Yeah, absolutely. There's, when you're talking about the Knight of Swords, there's a bit of impulsivity there that I'm feeling as well, because it's like it's hustling and it's go, 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 but there's kind of a lack of grounding there. But I think, and it kind of reminds me of what it's like to be a teenager sometimes, like that more just going for it energy. But we can all embody that at different parts of our lives, right? And same with pages.
Absolutely.
You're saying it's a little bit more grown up than the Fool, which makes perfect sense to me. And it's that more exploratory, like kind of youthful energy. But there are people, I'm sure, in their 80s that are exploring something new for the first time, and they're feeling that youthful energy. So that's kind of why it doesn't have to be nailed down to any specific age. So if a page comes up, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a young child that you meet.
Mm-hmm. Hear, hear.
There's a deck I have. It's called Your Journey Through the Enchanted Forest. I'm in love with it. But they don't have the regular court card labels. The page is the child.
Okay.
The knight is your seeker. The queen is your weaver, and the king is your keeper. And I wanted to get your feedback. I just wanted to see what your thoughts were on that.
I like it. I actually really like decks that come up with different names for the court cards, because I think page, knight, queen, king can alienate some people because it's a little old-timey, and especially with the queen and the king, it really does sort of delineate a specific gender or a specific type of energy. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing, but it can throw people off. So I appreciate decks that come at it from that different angle. And even though they're calling it the child, like I was just saying, I think that we can all have that childlike energy from time to time, right? I love the seeker. That's a really cool one. What do you think, Jessie?
Yeah, no, I also enjoy decks that put different labels to those court cards. So I just got the Prism Tarot from Shop the Eighth House, and they have like the page is the novice, and I think the king is the master. And I need to grab it, and I should have been more prepared with that. But just another example of different ways to represent the energies of those cards. So yeah, and
I really
even just
like
with
that.
Yeah, and even with the child, like we all can immediately understand what that type of energy is like, or what it feels like at beginning something. And just like you said, Jazz, it doesn't matter what age you are, we are coming into circumstances every day where it's new. And so it's like we're going right back to our brain being like, ooh, this is unfamiliar. I need to work my way through this and learn from this. And we never stop learning. We never stop, even through experiences, again, creating those neural pathways and connections. Right. It's like that is what a child, that youthful energy is like. And I hope we continue. I mean, the more childlike experience and wonderment that we can bring into our lives, learning new things and exposing ourselves to what's uncomfortable and maybe unfamiliar, wow, that just helps us grow. And we should all be seeking out those experiences. Keeps us alive.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's such a good encapsulation of what the pages can represent too. And especially that growth part, because if you never start something, you really just never know, right? Like you'll never be able to take that journey unless you take that first step. And so sometimes I see the pages really as kind of taking up the gift from the ace as well. Like there was that offering. So let's just say with the Page of Cups, there was that offering of however you want to see the ace, whether it was a new chance at an emotional relationship with yourself or with somebody else, or some sort of emotional clarity. But the page has kind of gone through the suit, like from ace through 10, and is now really prepared to kind of take it up and move along with it. And just sort of planting seeds for the bigger journey that's ahead. And learning, yeah, I think that's a huge thing for the pages as well. And then so to go back to the sort of dual element thing, so I sort of see pages as that earth energy. They're grounded because they are ahead of, let's say, the ace through the 10. But they're just getting their start. But you have to sort of root yourself before you can get that start, or at least that's kind of how I see it. So I think did I already mention the Page of Wands? And so that being the earth and the fire energy and having that really grounded expansion. Is there another page that you guys really like that you just want to like quickly elaborate on to give sort of an example?
I actually love the Page of Cups.
Okay.
It's almost like giving yourself permission to be vulnerable, giving yourself permission to, sometimes lose your mind. You don't always have to know everything. You don't always have to be in control of everything. And sometimes it's okay just to feel the feels.
Yeah.
That's the energy I always get from that Page of Cups. And I adore it.
Yeah. Page of Cups is, to me, that's the most sort of childlike one, but in the best way, where it's like, hey, have you forgotten how to use your imagination? Like, just don't be so serious. Have some fun. kick back, that kind of thing. What about you, Jessie? Any favorite pages?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Page of Pentacles because I feel like this is just that, connection again to earth and representative just enthusiasm, maybe with the material. And I always feel like it's kind of like the child of the earth. So, just delighting and wandering around and picking flowers and appreciating life or the beginnings of something that's growing.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, especially because the Page of Pentacles would be that double earth, right? So at least in the system I'm using, again, it's all what resonates.
Well, and it has a really good connection, like you said, to the ace, that grown up ace, whereas, new opportunity or new awareness into your intuitive space. And I think that pair very specifically has a great connection into, what is growing within you or what is manifesting itself.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, let's move into the Knights. And as I said before, I kind of see them as having the base element of air. And I don't know, Knights to me, you've already said this, Jessie, but they're very action oriented. Sometimes we can see them maybe as like messengers. So if the pages are, taking the seeds and planting them, then the Knight is then taking that next action that's needed. How do you see the Knights? Jessie, do you want to elaborate on what you said before at the top of the show? Or do you have like a specific Knight that you really identify with or love?
Well, anytime I see the Knight of Wands, it is a reminder of, okay, do I need to take a pause? I'm getting a little crazy here with all my actions. And yeah, I've talked a lot about the Knights this round, but I would say if I had to identify with one, it would be the Knight of Wands.
Gotcha. How about you, Jekanovia?
I actually love that Knight of Swords. It's just like time to go, stop thinking about it, just full speed ahead. Sometimes that's just exactly what I need when I get up in the morning.
Yeah. Just that little kick in the butt, eh?
Yep. So, ask no questions, just move.
So for me, I think I'm going to go with the Knight of Pentacles on this one because there's just something about that. I don't know. When I see the Knight of Pentacles, it's like, okay, there really is no other path forward than to just do the work, and to be, don't worry about being so methodical about things because that's what's being called for. Cross the T's, dot the I's, and, the seeds that you're really taking action on today are going to be what sort of flourishes in your garden for years and years to come. And so taking that action now is just so important. But it's again in that so it's that taking action with the air, but it's being grounded in it with that earth energy from the Pentacles. Anything else on Knights, guys? Anything else just general energies with the Knights or?
No, just, action. I think they are the epitome of an action card, I think.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. Well, so let's move on to the Queens then. So as I mentioned before, their base element is water. And I just had this keyword of understanding with the Queens. There's just something about the energy of them has just come to a place where they just kind of get it and they're just embodying the energy at that point. And I see them as caretakers, and we can say that if, the page was planting the seeds, the Knight was taking action on those seeds, and now the Queen is just really tending to those seeds and making sure that they're going to grow and they're going to bloom. So favorite Queen, Jekanovia? I know you said Queen of Wands before. Do you want to elaborate on that one or pick a new one?
Well, Queen of Wands is my favorite, but I think that the Queen of Cups deserves an honorable mention.
Okay.
All the queens, I think, they just give me that whole wise woman, like the sage, the one you turn to for advice, every queen. But especially that Queen of Cups, that's where you go to for advice. Or, if you've had a rough day and you want somebody to listen, that's who she is in my mind. She definitely gives great advice for anything to do with the emotions, anything to do with, even your passions, something that's going to nurture your spirit. But yeah, that's my second favorite queen, I suppose you'd say.
Talking about the Queen of Cups, it's really about the intuitive sense, but With your Queen of Wands, I always love to think about that personal power, right? And that creativity that we have. But my fave, the Queen of Pentacles, yeah, really just creating something physically, right? And manifesting. I just love that it is a goal to step into what we are here to do, a lot of that soul work.
Yeah.
And that's just what I feel when I see that Queen of Pentacles show up.
Beautiful. Well, I suppose that just leaves the Queen of Swords. We've touched on all the other queens, so I'll give her, a moment in the spotlight. But to me, the Queen of Swords, I see her as this energy that reminds you to take or to establish, but to maintain boundaries that you have. And I think that because we're talking about the suit of, oh my gosh, I just went blank. That's so funny. The suit of swords, we're talking about communication and the mental realm and all that kind of stuff. So it is about those sort of more mental boundaries in a way. And what I always get from that queen is that it's okay to have those boundaries too, like to stay strong in that and to say, this is what I need to actually be me and to stay in my power and to forge ahead. So that's Queen of Swords for me. I do love that queen. I think, as I said before, the Queen of Wands is my favorite, but I would never be mad when the Queen of Swords shows up. Okay, we'll move on to the kings. So as I mentioned before, the base element here is fire. And the keyword I kind of have for them mostly is just control. And I guess when I think about the queens and the kings, I sort of see them as the same level of maturity in a way, but they use their energy in different ways. I see the queen as bringing it more internal and embodying it sort of from the inside out, whereas I see the king being very external and shining the energy outward. And I wonder if that just has to do with that more receptive or active energies that we were talking about before in place of the more masculine, feminine type thing. But they're leaders, and they are, they've taken the page, planted the seed, the knight took action on the seed, the queen nurtured the seed, and the king is sharing the fruits from those seeds. So favorite king, Jessie?
I'm actually going to go with the King of Swords. It came up for me recently, and I'm thinking I might need to embrace that. But I look at the King of Swords as truth, like standing in truth. And, we have, the sooner we can be truthful with ourselves and honest with ourselves in all things, it just keeps us on that path, that soul purpose path. And we cannot hide from ourselves. And the King of Swords is just a reminder that by standing in our power and our truth, we cannot go wrong.
Yeah, beautiful. What about you, Jackanovia?
Well, just to add on to your note between the queens and the kings, when I see when I compare the two, it's more like the queen, she's the visionary. She's the one that has that vision. She's the one that has that inspiration, makes the plans, coordinates everything, she's the energy behind something. And the kings are like the physical manifestation of that vision.
Yeah.
That's how I differentiate the two. My favorite king is the King of Pentacles, hands down. It's like the result of that hard work. He's the ultimate manifestation, genius. It's like he's done the research, he's put in the effort, and now he's sitting there and he's willing to share. He's willing to spread that abundance around. He's very fair, very balanced. So he's definitely my favorite.
Yes, that king is a real boss, but the nicest kind of boss too. Okay, I guess I'm going to go with the King of Cups. For me, the King of Cups is really about, Jackanovia, you were talking about the Queen of Cups and how you can just go to them and you can tell them everything and they will hold space for you. But there's something about the King of Cups that I see more as that space holder. And it's almost because they have reached this level of emotional maturity where holding space for others in that way, not only does it help to fill that other person's cup, but it fills their cup at the same time. So maybe it's just a different expression of that holding space, like we saw with the Queen of Cups. And I always think of therapists or even tarot readers, anybody that holds space for somebody else and is able to sort of keep up that, the traditional depiction of the King of Cups, we see them on a throne, rolling through waves, and yet they're steady, right? So they can handle whatever comes at them in these emotional sort of ups and downs. So I think I like that one the most because, again, it's kind of like hashtag goals. Like I kind of want to be the King of the King of Cups when I grow up because it's so emotionally stable and in check. So that would be that would be my pick for the king anyway. Anything else overall about court cards? Like anything else we want to say about their energies or how we can use them when they're showing up? I don't know, Jesse, I think maybe we got off topic and I don't know if you actually told us the way that you see courts each court when they show up in a reading.
Well, similar, and it really does depend on what type of reading, but I do look at it as the energy of what I'm looking at. And so this was so fun to talk through because I think people can be a little they don't trust themselves unless even readers for many years, they kind of get tripped up, like you said. And so I would say just embrace the courts as adding really colorful messages and wisdom beyond just the numerical suited cards, and be thinking about, where the energy between, a page and the knight, queen, king, or however they're depicted in the deck that you're using. I think that it is just a really inspiring way to add more depth into the reading. So when they show up, I'm not necessarily scared. In fact, to me, it gives me more insight. I feel like it targets it a little bit more.
Okay, because it's getting so specific about like the level of energy or what kind of energy you need to be taking in and focusing on?
Yes,
okay.
Exactly. I feel like because it's lending itself to the maturity of the energy of the card itself, I can tune in a little bit better. And then, I love how we've broken out the element connections because, I don't know that I incorporate that as much as I should. And now that we've done this and the notes that we've got here, I just think this is going to be a really unique way for people, I think, to expand on what they already know about the courts. So great job, you guys. I love this.
Yeah, it was, as always, so much fun to talk through. But yeah, I think that was sort of my goal, like with the idea of this episode, was just to give something that people could go back to just as a base. So if a court card comes up and it's really tripping you up, break it down to that element, and then so that base element plus the element of the suit that you're looking at, and even just looking at the way that those things mix together and what that kind of evokes for you, and even looking beyond what's on the card or looking at the images that are in the card and then trying to tie them in with the elements that are coming up, and just seeing what mix that gives you, just seeing what that sort of pings in your intuition. And I don't know, that's what I do. So like if I just get really tripped up on a court card and I'm not sure how to take it, I'll just really break it down to those basic elements, right? But I also really like what you're saying, Jesse, about the fact that, so let's say you're asking a question about, is this going to work out? So it's such a basic question. But if you pulled a page versus if you pulled a king, you might know the different sort of energy to give the problem or the different sort of approach to take to find your solution. I really like that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
And I might say I really appreciate the astrological connections because that's a new way for me to, or something new that I'm pulling into my reading as well. And this is a really great guide. In fact, maybe we need to put a little chart together for everyone if that's something that for our listeners to map out. So we can talk about that, but it's been so helpful to me, and I'd love to have a little cheat sheet.
I think that's a great idea. And we will, I think we'll use the correspondences that Jekanovia brought to us today. And then, like I said throughout the episode, I'm still kind of working on how I feel about them. So I'll add those in as like an additional column, and it'll all be there for people to kind of feel their way through. But Jekanovia, any kind of final thoughts about courts in general, or?
Yeah, I mean, I just hope that everyone can kind of take away from this that they're more of an empowering card. They're not so much, it's not so much about memorizing what their specific meanings are, but figuring out what they mean to you and letting them empower you to see how to handle a certain situation that you're addressing in your reading. Like actually Jess had mentioned doing a little cheat sheet. I think it might be helpful for some people. When I was trying to learn how to really read the court cards, what I would do is find out what their corresponding zodiac sign was, and I'd see what their personality traits were generally for those specific signs. And that really helped me with the whole finding what persona to take on modality there.
Love that. Yeah. I love that chart idea, Jessie. Definitely a great idea. I think we will have to move forward with that for sure. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me. Thank you, listeners, for joining us. We will be back in a couple of weeks with another brand new episode. Until then, Jekanovia, where can everyone find you on the internet?
I am on Instagram at tarot_and_time. And I would love to have you follow me.
And what about you, Jessie?
All right. You can find me on Instagram at tarot, when T in the middle, and tarottarot.com as well.
And you can find me at the.written.witch on Instagram and sign up for my newsletter there. I'll definitely have information about upcoming shows. And yeah, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye now.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Tarot Coven Cast. Come hang out with the Coven on our new Instagram page at Tarot Coven Cast. Stay tuned for our next episode, all about creating your own tarot spreads and working with oracle cards. And until then, everyone, keep making magic.